None of this is anything new for Aaron Portzline, who's been covering John Tortorella for the last 7 years. All right, Aaron, Patrick Laine benched in Game 4 after scoring 3 goals through his first 3 games with the Blue Jackets. As you're watching him stapled to the bench for the last 26 minutes of last game, what was going through your mind?
Well, it's just, it's surreal to see this happening again. I mean, it's been a very tumultuous start to this season for the Blue Jackets. Drama, win, lose, or day off is sort of how it's felt. Max Domi scratched in his first game with the Blue Jackets. Patrick Laine is a player, after making that huge trade involving Pierre-Luc Dubois, this is a player, Laine, that they really need to do well for them, not just in terms of their success immediate, but in terms of his desire to sign long-term with the contract. So there's a little bit of a here we go again element to it. And you're wondering, how much of this is the result of just the 2 breakdowns defensively that clearly Laine committed in that game Monday against Carolina? How much is it other stuff? How much is it John Tortorella trying to get Laine to sort of reshape Laine's game? And I think there are people who wonder if even that's possible. Patrick Laine is an incredible goal scorer. The Blue Jackets had to know when they acquired him, this is not a Selke Trophy candidate. He has to be responsible in his own zone, certainly. But this is a player who makes up for some shortcomings defensively with his incredible offensive talents. And is this going to be the beginning of a long sort of tete-a-tete between Laine and Tortorella? That's what I was thinking.
That's a great question. I'll get to that in a moment. But first up, I want to ask you, who bears the lion's share of the responsibility for this benching, Laine or Tortorella?
Well, John Tortorella doesn't bench him without merit, or there's no good reason that Laine is scratched. There were a couple of glaring defensive breakdowns. I guess where it changed for me, I could see the end of the second period after those breakdowns, giving the player a couple of shifts off, perhaps addressing the defensive woes either on the bench or during the second intermission. What really elevated this to a different level for me, though, was the fact that Laine didn't see the ice at all in the third period. This is a 2-2 hockey game with Carolina. This is a game the Blue Jackets desperately need to win because they've not played very well. And still, the decision is made throughout the entire third period that this team was better suited to win without Patrick Laine than with him. That's a little difficult for me to rationalize.
All right, but to your point, this is nothing new. As you mentioned, Max Domi got benched in his first game with the team. Pierre-Luc Dubois got benched, famously, of course. Laine now, leading scorer Oliver Bjorkstrand, has started some games on the 4th line. This is their leading scorer. Yep. John Tortorella's embarrassed some pretty high-profile talent. Is he putting a bullseye in his own back?
Well, I think he is, yes, but I think he's had it there for a while. He may, I don't know, secretly, privately enjoy it there at times. There's been so much drama this year. Like, he would say that this was not in any way an attempt to embarrass a player. And as I said earlier, I think the benching him for the entirety of the third period sort of elevates this to a different level. But he would insist this is not an attempt to embarrass. This is an attempt to push forth a corrective measure toward the player to get everyone playing on the same page. They have not played well at all this season. And John Tortorella said last night they've been disjointed on the ice. And then ominously, he also said they've been disjointed off the ice as well. So you wonder what that's about. But it's shocking when it's a player of Patrick Laine's ilk. This is not a 4th line guy. This is, you shorten the bench to get your scorers out there in a tight game. It's noteworthy, big time noteworthy. This is a story that's across the globe now because Patrick Laine, an elite level player, was benched for almost the last half of that game Monday.
All right, we've seen breakups because of this kind of attitude in the past. Sergei Bobrovsky moved on, took less money. Duchesne moved on as well. Pierre-Luc Dubois demanded to get out. Patrick Laine is a restricted free agent at the end of this year. This is the final year on his current contract. If it comes to this, and it's John Tortorella or continue to lose high-profile talent, Does management need to step in and change the direction they're going?
Well, I think management may look at it a bit differently than that. There's no indication that Artemi Panarin left Columbus for anything that had to do with John Tortorella. In fact, Artemi Panarin loved John Tortorella. There's indication from Dubois' camp that while certainly Dubois and Tortorella had issues, that the kernel of his desire to be traded was not based in John Tortorella's coaching. And Dubois even said that himself. So I think we have to be careful with this idea that every star player wants out of Columbus because of John Tortorella. But if you're Jarmo Kekalainen, I think you have to be at least short-term concerned about your big acquisition, Patrik Laine, being benched like this. They can extend him this summer. Certainly, this doesn't mean it's going to be hard to extend him this summer, but it doesn't get the two off on a great foot, I can't imagine. I watched Laine's body language last night. After the game, he skated out with everybody else, celebrated with Jonas Korpisalo, the winning goaltender, fist bumped everybody in line. Cam Atkinson, who sits next to him in the dressing room, said he suspects Laine will handle this well. Jack Roslovic, who knows him as well as anybody in the room, having played with him in Winnipeg, said the same. But we'll see. We'll see where it goes. You hope that Laine handles it well. But again, this wasn't two shifts off. This was elevated to the point where he missed the entire third period. That's the kind of stuff that resonates not just locally, but across the hockey world.
Really interesting news on Tuesday. Mikko Koivu, after 16 years in the league, shockingly announces a retirement. Coincidence or related to what else is going on with John Tortorella, the Jackets?
Yeah, well, it's hard to say. There's been no indication from Koivu that this is Tortorella related. He said in a statement from the club that he's not able to play at the level he had hoped to play. But, Gino, I think you also have to consider Mikko Koivu a healthy scratch on Monday, believed to be the first time he's been a healthy scratch in his entire career, 16 years. I think you can read into this if you're Mikko Koivu, that if you're a healthy scratch in game 14, your seventh game with the club, that you may be in a situation where you're not playing regularly the rest of the year. For a prideful player like Mikko Koivu, and he has every right to be that prideful player. He's had an incredible career. I'm not sure that's the role that he's up for, that he's interested in doing. Look, this is a difficult time. I think there are lots of players across the league, and many of them don't want to articulate it because this is not the best time for millionaire athletes to complain about their fate or their place in life right now. There's a lot of people having a really hard time in this world. But this just, for a lot of people, does not feel right. This is just not enjoyable for a lot of people. They're having a hard time with it. And you wonder if that factors into it with Mikko Koivu as well.
Aaron, being the veteran guy covering the Blue Jackets right now, it's always up to you to ask the really tough questions. And we know what it's like asking tough questions to John Tortorella. How do you ask those questions without getting blasted?
Well, some days you do get blasted, and that's okay too. I mean, as I've said, one thing, Torts and I have a pretty good relationship, really good most days. And the one thing that I've learned is your best question can't ever be your first question, because the man loves to brush aside first questions and kick him to the curb. So you got to get him warmed up a bit. But if you ask him an honest question, if you stick your chin up there and you ask a firm and honest, fair question, the one thing I really like about him, and most people who have covered him would concur, is he most often gives you a honest answer. He speaks his truth. Now, you have to be careful that that's not always the truth, but it is his truth. And he's one of the few coaches left that will give you an honest opinion. There are days where you walk away from an interview with him wondering how you can possibly fit all of this into the proper context, because there's so much rich, interesting coverage from him. He has made life very, very interesting. But most days, an overwhelming number of days, it's a very enjoyable spot to be in.
Well, Aaron, certainly no shortage of material for your daily articles in The Athletic. We appreciate you talking to us. Thanks.
Well, always a pleasure, Gino. Thank you.